about whatever. So the main thing I want to talk about today is the first pasuk from Parshas Yisro, which is Shmos 18:1. And I want to demonstrate from this one verse how important it is to have the sages explain to us what is being communicated here and how we can apply that to our lives. This parsha, this pasuk, this verse doesn't really seem to say anything of any significance. In English, I think I have it here. Here it is in English. Yisro, or Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard all that God had done for Moses and for Israel, his people, how the Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt. Now, it doesn't seem like it's saying very much, but it's telling us a whole lot. And that's what I want to get into. Here it is in Hebrew and in English. Vayishma Yisro Kohen Midian Hoshe Moshe. Yisro heard, Yisro, the father-in-law, the priest of Midian, the father-in-law of Moses, heard all that God had done for his people and Israel, and that he had brought his people Israel out of Egypt. So if we back up just a little bit to the beginning of this week's parsha, which is everyone all over the world is going to read these verses this coming Shabbos in the synagogue. And we're focusing on these few words here. Haba nechachmas lo. Literally, it means let us deal shrewdly or wisely with them. And this is dealing with Paro's problem of dealing with the Jewish people growing in number and afraid of them going back to Israel and kicking out their friends who live in Eretz Canaan out. And he's trying to prevent them and keep them in Egypt, Mitzrayim. So it says that he wants to deal wisely with them. How is he going to deal wisely with them? Well, they knew, let me go to a source. Let me go to a source for this. Let me find it real fast. One second. My mouse is not responding the way it normally does. It's a little bit frustrating. So,
does it need a battery? Perhaps?
No, it's actually a wired one.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, I can't find the source for it, but I have it here somewhere. Let me back up. The point of this is that Yisro was one of the advisors to Pharaoh. Pharaoh had 3 advisors. One was Bilam, one was Eov, which is Job, and the third one was Yisro. So we have Yisro.
Pharaoh? What Pharaoh is that? The Pharaoh of
Pharaoh
Moshe's
at the time of the Exodus.
All right.
This was after the time of Joseph, where it says, the beginning of the parsha says, there arose a king in Egypt who knew not Joseph.
Right.
So this is whether it's a
The other
new
one thinks
pharaoh.
Ramses is the second, or but probably was not, or
I don't have any other thing. It was,
Hmm.
yeah, there's an argument whether it was the same pharaoh who pretended not to know Joseph or was a new pharaoh who actually didn't know Joseph. But his concern now was the Jewish population was growing. And he wanted to know, he asked his advisors how to deal with it. And one of the advisors, I don't know who, one of the advisors was basically saying, and probably it was Bilam, if I had to guess, said that if you want to deal with the Jewish people, Jewish problem, and get rid of them or lessen their numbers, then you have to, as this word deals, shrewdly or outsmart him. Who's the him? The him is God. You have to outsmart God. Can you imagine the chutzpah? He wants to outsmart God. So the answer is that how are they going to outsmart God? Well, God made a covenant. He made a bris that after the flood, that he was not going to bring another flood, a mabul. And they also had a understanding that God runs the world measure for measure. That's one thing that really impressed Yisro, was that he could see that whatever this God of the Jews was doing, it was exactly measure for measure for what they had done to the Jewish people. And if he runs the world that way, and he made a promise, a covenant that he's not going to bring a mabul, he's not going to bring a flood, then we have the perfect solution. We can punish the Jews with water. We can drown the boys in the water, and God will be powerless to punish us because he made a promise he's not going to bring a flood. And he runs the world measure for measure. So that's where they're holding. And that's why the decision was made finally to throw the Jewish baby boys into the water. So back to our main text. Let's see, where is it? Vayishma Yisro Kohen mission. Yisro, the father-in-law of Moses, the priest of Midian, the father-in-law of Moses, heard all that God had done. What had he heard? What had Yisro heard that convinced him to become a convert and join the Jewish people and convert to Judaism? Because it doesn't really say what he heard. He just said, or he heard all that God did, and that Hashem brought the Jewish people out of Egypt. So what exactly is that? So you know the famous commentary Rashi, correct?
yes.
So Rashi says right away, I blow this up a little bit. What did Yisro hear? Over here on the right, Yisro heard, what report did he hear that said such a great ontic that he came and joined the Jewish people? He heard about the dividing of the sea, Kriyas Yamsuf, and the war with Amalek. That's what he heard. But if we look back in this verse, how does Rashi get that from this verse? Do you see Amalek, a war, in this verse? Do you see the splitting of the Red Sea in this verse? No, we don't see that. So how does Rashi know that that's what he's talking about? Well, first of all, Rashi notes that there's two different names for God in this sentence. One is Elohim, and one is Yod Ke Vav Ke. Do you see that? Can you see the screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, do you know about gematria?
The kind of the new numbers of
Yes.
the Torah. Yes.
Right. So every letter in the Hebrew language is not only a letter, but it's also a number. Not only is a number and a letter, it's also a musical note. So there's 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. Now, if you think of a standard keyboard, you have 3 sets of, there's 7 notes in the scale, and the 8th note completes the octave. 7 times 3 is 21, plus 1 more to complete the octave makes 22. So there's 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. So not only are they letters and numbers, they're also words, and also musical notes. Well, the numerical value of Elohim is 86. So this first letter, do you know what the name of this first letter is that I'm pointing to?
Or it's the name of it?
The letter, yeah, the name of the letter.
Well, it's the Aleph.
Right. The Aleph, the numerical value of Aleph is 1. The next letter here is a Lamed. That's the numerical value of 30.
I can read Hebrew a little bit. Yep.
Okay. Then the Hey is 5. The Yud is 10. And the final Mem is 40. So we have 40 and 30. That's 70, right? Plus 10 is 80. Plus the 5 is 85. Plus the Aleph is 86. So the numerical value of Elohim is 86, which has the same numerical value as Hateva, nature. So Hazal are telling us that this word Elohim in this pasuk is teaching us that this has to do with a natural event, natural miracle that God brought us out of Egypt. And this other name for God, the Yud, the Hey, the Vav, and Hey, is the holy name of God that's only used of God himself. And that's referring to the open miracle of the splitting of the sea, Kriyas Yamsuf. So what Yisro learned, and this key word here, right here, is key, Chaf Yud. That really means, here they translate it as that, but it really means because. Because of the hidden, because of the open miracle. What was the open miracle when they brought the Jews out of Egypt? That was the splitting of the sea. That was the undeniable miracle that nobody could deny. But the war with Amalek was hidden. It appeared to be just a natural war. So God was hidden. But Yisro learned from the open miracle of the splitting of the sea that God was also involved in the hidden miracle of the war with Amalek. Okay, so what was it about the splitting of the sea that made such an impact on Yisro that he came and heard? So let me show you another verse. Let me see if I can find it quickly and easy. I'm sorry, having trouble. I know it's before here. Okay, here it is. Hashem's greater. Now, Yisro said, now I know that Hashem is greater than all the gods in the matter itself in which the Egyptians had conspired against them. He took Jethro. What he's saying is that what made such a positive impact on Yisro was the fact that they thought they were going to outsmart God, in that they thought that they had outsmarted God, that they could punish the Jews by drowning them in water, but he would be punished to punish them measure for measure because of the covenant he made not to bring another flood. But when Yisro saw that he brought the Mitzrayim, the Egyptians, to the seabed, and they walked into the seabed, then that's not a violation of his bris. That's not a violation of his covenant. He made a promise that he wasn't going to bring a flood. But if you go into where the seabed is, that's not a violation of his covenant.
Yeah, it's
And
pretty brilliant.
that's what made such a big impression on him, is that this God of the Jews was able to prove not only that he could punish them, but he could punish them measure for measure. These other gods of the other lands, in Judaism, we have to understand that every nation has a ministering angel that watches over and protects it. But when that ministering angel only has limited power from God, and he's not able to punish an enemy exactly measure for measure, only Hashem can punish exactly measure for measure. And because of that measure for measure, and that's where this 2-letter word comes in, he, because of the open miracle of bringing them out of Mitzrayim in the splitting of the sea, he was able to learn that Elohim, God, was also involved with the war with Amalek. So we have an understanding that this is called Bina, to learn one thing from another. Let me see if I can find this here. Oh, before I go on, we already said what Rashi says. Rashi says that he heard about the splitting of the sea and the war with Amalek. What does the Rambam say? The Rambam says this. I don't know if can you see this, what I'm pointing to? Through recalling and acknowledging the great manifest miracles of the Exodus, a person ultimately acknowledges the hidden miracles of everyday life, which is the foundation of the entire Torah. What the Rambam is saying, basically, in a nutshell, is that God does not perform miracles for any doubting Thomas that comes along. But he performed these miracles of the Exodus from Egypt and bringing the Jews to Israel and giving them the Torah. He did all these miracles to silence all of his critics and to give them evidence once and for all that he's running the show. And he's not going to keep repeating new miracles for every doubting Thomas. You want to find out the validity of the claims of God? Go back and read the story of the Exodus and the Jewish people and how God supernaturally brought a nation to himself from another nation. And what the Rambam's saying is that God does open miracles so that we can learn from there that also the hidden miracles are also the hand of God. Okay, so again, Rashi says, where did Rashi go? Rashi says he heard about the splitting of the sea and the war with Amalek. Now, it's interesting, if you look carefully here, and this is important for you to kind of get a grasp on, it says, what did he heard? He heard about the dividing of the sea and the war with Amalek. So first the sea and the war with Amalek. But if we go back here to the verse that we're talking about, Exodus 18:1, if Elohim refers to the hidden miracle of the war with Amalek, that's listed first before the splitting of the sea, with the open miracle with God's name, God's holy name. So why does Rashi, when he gives us this information, he switches the order? He says, dividing the sea of reeds and the war with Amalek. Well, one might say, well, because that's the order it actually happened. The events happened was first the splitting of the sea, and then came the war with Amalek. But another answer would be, is that it was if we go back to the verse again, it goes back to this one word, key, right here. Because of the open miracle, he saw that God's hand was also involved in the war with Amalek. So Rashi is saying he first learned this thing, This is what we call Bina, learning one thing from another. Let's see if I can find this here easily for you. Thus, let's see. Here it is. If you see here in the Gemara in Hagiga, it says learning one thing from another. This is Bina, B-I-N-A. We might translate that as understanding or insight. Understanding one thing from another. So let me see if I can share this page with you. Okay. So I don't have that handy. Let me go back to where I was. So Yisro heard about the Kriyas Yamsuf and Muhammad Salamat. He learned from the open miracle of the splitting of the sea, namely that God was judging them measure for measure, and still was faithful to his covenant, that he was not going to bring another flood. And he learned from there that God is also involved in the hidden miracle. So, and Rashi says he heard about Kriyas Yamsuf and the war, and the Rambam says God does open miracles so that we can learn from the open miracle, namely the 10 plagues and the splitting of the sea. We can learn from those open miracles that everything in our everyday life is a miracle from God. And we have to see the hand of God in everything that we do. So it's interesting that if we come, when they first came to Mitzrayim, and you know, they said, let my people go. What did Pharaoh say? Look here what he said. He said, me Hashem, that I should listen to his voice. Who is God that I should listen to him? And see, here's that holy name of God, the Yud, the He, the Vav, and the He. Who is Hashem that I should listen to him? You hear the arrogance, okay? But it's interesting the word he chose. He chose the word who. See over here on the right, me Hashem. Who is Hashem? Why does he say me Hashem? The answer is, let me go back. The answer is, see, if you look at the word Elohim, it's the last two letters are Yud and a Mem. You understand the Mem can look two different ways, if it's in the middle of a word or at the end of a word.
Sophie,
right. Very good.
Mem, Sophie.
Excellent. Right. Same letters, me Hashem.
Right.
So what he was saying is, I only accept the Yud and the Mem of Elohim. The Aleph, Lam, and Hey, I reject. I reject that God controls nature. I control nature. Who is God? Maybe the Mem and the Yud, but not the Aleph, Lam, and Hey. No, forget that. So now I'm going to show you something that'll blow you away. Let me just find it here. Okay, at the beginning of Parshas Bo, they've been told that now they're going to have to gather their own straw. Okay, you remember that story? Yes?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, to make brick.
Right.
They're going to have to gather from the fields and
Moshe's complaining, you know, you sent me to be the Mashiach, you sent me to be the deliverer, and now I'm making it worse for them. Look what God says. Vayomer, I don't know El Moshe. Hashem said to Moses, come to Paro, Bo El Paro, Ki Ani Hikbadadi, for I have hardened his heart, Es Libo, and the heart of his servants, in order that I can place my signs, these, in their midst. What is he going to place in their midst? These. What's these? It's spelled Ella, Aleph, Lamed, Hey. He doesn't believe that I'm the Aleph, Lamed, Hey. He doesn't believe in Elohim. I'm going to show him. Now I'm going to show him the Aleph, Lamed, Hey. He doesn't accept the Aleph, Lamed. Now I'm going to show him the Aleph, Lamed, Hey. You hear? So we go back to the verse. The Elohim, he needs the Yod or the Mem by saying me Hashem. Who is Hashem? But the Aleph Lamed Hey, he's not ready to accept that. Now God tells him, now he's going to see. Now I'm going to show him that I'm controlling nature. And we have all the 10 plagues. So Yisro was able to learn one thing from another. That's Bina, being able to learn one thing from another. I want to show that to you. See if I can find it here quickly. Okay, see here it says Bina means Hamavin Devar Mitok Devar, understanding something from another, from something else. This was able to do it. He's saying if A is true, then also maybe B is also true. So he's putting things together. So again, we read this verse and it seems very vanilla, non-specific. Just Israel heard all that God did for the Jewish people and that he brought his people out of Egypt. But what was he really saying? He's saying something far deeper, and it's only brought out by the sages. This is why it's so important to have the rabbis to tell us and to guide us what these words mean. Rashi says, what did you heard? You heard about Kriyash Yamsuf first, then the war with Amalek, even though they happen in reverse order, right? No, even though they happen in that order, it's not that way in the verse. He's learning from the open miracle that God's also involved in the hidden miracles. Okay.
Well, I think that really stood out to me. I never thought of the drowning of the Pharaoh and his army in the Red Sea, in the Sea of Suf, you know, the Red Sea. Or Reed, do you say Red Sea or Reed Sea?
Both are true.
Okay. So I never thought of that as an act of reprisal against them for drowning, you know, the Hebrew male children, you know.
Our sages go through all 10
pretty profound
plagues, all the 10 plagues, and show how each one was measure for measure. And we can go through that later. I don't have that information.
And it also enlightens me to the fact that Pharaoh knew he was dealing with with Elohim, you know, being bound by his own rules and his own measure for measure. So I mean, you know, apart from him just being, you know, Meshuggah and crazy.
Right.
You know, just like, because I've always wondered that, like, why would you follow somebody into an obvious trap? You know, but he felt he must have felt emboldened to do that because he thought that he wouldn't, if he did it for Israel, you know, the children of Israel, then he would also, you know, have to give him safe passage. You know, he knows that but it was his own, I mean, to his own foolishness, you know, because that was obviously a trap, you know, so, or not obviously for him, but was going to be something that was going to be repaid to him and his army. Which I always thought I thought that the death of the firstborn in the, you know, was that act of like vengeance. So I completely missed that this, you know, the drowning of the army in the Sea of Suf to be like the to actually be that one. So what do you think what was the measure for measure on him striking the firstborn of Egypt then? What was that?
Okay, there's many different answers that go with this, and it can go very deep. But first of all, he was denying that Israel was God's firstborn. Okay, there's some shirim I can pull up for you and send to you that are on my website that deal specifically with the death of the firstborn and how it was measure for measure. Another understanding is that when God created the world, he created with 10 statements or 10 sayings. And those 10 sayings or 10 statements directly correspond to the 10 plagues in Egypt, but in reverse order. What was the first thing God said other than I am God? He first said,
let there be light.
Let there be light. What was the second to the last plague? Darkness.
Right.
Okay. And it goes exactly in reverse.
I never saw that happen either.
Yeah.
But you're right. It kind of goes back through like recapitulating, but in reverse order. Right. That's pretty insightful.
Rabbi Akiva Tatz, he's on my website. And he's all over YouTube. He's an absolute genius. And he goes through and gives you step by step showing how it's exactly measure for measure, and it corresponds with the order of creation, the 10 statements of creation, only in reverse order, because Pharaoh was trying to tear down creation and say that he was the creator, and God was overturning it in reverse order. I forget exactly why it was reverse order. He said it's like an apple or a pear. When you peel it, you peel from the outside in to reveal what's hidden inside. Okay, so now we're going to an amazing passage.
And that would make sense too, because the drowning of the Red Sea, the waters being on the face of the earth and him dividing land from water was one of the, the first things to happen in that orders.
Right. One of the things he says is that when God split the sea, it says that if you look at the text, it says that after they crossed the sea returned to its original condition. And it doesn't mean just the state. It changed from being vertical to being horizontal. But he means it goes back to the original condition, meaning that when God first created the world, he made a condition on the seas that when I need you to split to save my people, you will split to save my people. And it went back to that original condition, meaning that in the future, when Mashiach comes, the waters are going to split again all over the world. So, and our sages teach us that everything that's ever going to happen is all in the Torah, and even specifically in Bereshis. Now, since God made a bris when he created the ocean, that when I need you to split to save my people, you're going to split to save my people. If everything's in creation, where is it in creation, in the story of creation, that God made a covenant with the seas that when I need you to split to save my people, you'll split to save my people? And he says, the pasuk says, the verse says in the beginning, in the creation account, it says, let the waters be gathered together in one place, that the dry land may appear. So the question now comes, if all the waters are gathered together in one place, of course the dry land's going to appear. Why does it say, so that the dry land may appear? That's referring to the bris, the covenant that he made with the sea. Let the waters be gathered together so that the dry land may appear. Okay? What's the dry land? The dry land at the bottom of the Yam Suf, that the children may cross. Let the waters be gathered together, that the dry land may appear. That's what they cross.
It's very insightful.
Yeah, I mean, this is Rabbi Tatz. Rabbi Tatz can blow you away like nobody's business.
What's his name? How do you say that?
T-A-T-Z, Akiva, A-K-I-V-A, Tatz. You can find him on my website. You can also find him on YouTube. He's all over the place.
And may I ask you what that other word that you're saying there is? Posik?
That's a verse. P-O-S-I-K.
P-O-S-I-K.
It's just a Hebrew for verse.
Verse.
A chapter is a parak, and a verse is a pasuk.
How do I spell Perek?
Perek, P-E-R-E-K.
Oh. Thank you.
No problem. So again,
Pasuk and Perek.
we're reading just this verse that Yisro heard all that God had done. And the sages have come along and tell us two things. He heard about the war with Amalek, and he heard about Priest Yom Tov and the war with Amalek. And the Rambam says God does open miracles, and we can learn from the open miracles that the hidden miracles are also the hand of God. So let me go back up a little bit. So if you look at this word Bina, base Yud Nun Hey, okay? The base, the Yud, and the Nun is the shorish, the root of the word, Bina. And Bina means to learn one thing from another. Okay? Got that?
Got it.
Okay. Now, I'm going to show you an amazing verse from King David, from Tehillim, Psalms. Psalms 107, 43. This is the last verse in Psalm 107. And if we read it in English, it doesn't seem to be saying anything. It's hard to, what is he trying to say? It says, whoever is wise, let him note these things, and they will comprehend the kindnesses of God, of Hashem. So, again, what is Rashi's? We know what Rashi says. We know what the Rambam says. That's what Yisro heard to bring the Jewish people, that made him want to convert and become a Jew, because he saw these miracles were mida keneged mida, measure for measure, and God still was true to his covenant. Okay, so we have this thing that says, who is wise? Let him note these things, and they will comprehend the kindnesses of God. So who is this unnamed wise person? Mi Chacham. Says one of our great sages, the Hassam Sofer. This phrase, Mi Chacham, who is this wise man? This is referring exactly back to Yisro. If you look at the words that are highlighted here, Yisro, Kohen, Midian, Hoshen, Moshe. Look at the first letter of each word. Yud, Chaf, Mem, Ches, and another Mem. Two Mems, a Ches, a Chaf, and a Yud. Got it?
Yes.
So we go back down here to this other page. Yud, Ches, Chaf, Mem, second Mem. Who is this unnamed Hakam? Yisro, Kohen, Midian, Hoshen, Moshe. Yisro, the priest of Midian, the father-in-law of Moses. He is this wise man. Vayishmar, he's paying attention to the Aleph Lamed Hey. He's putting together the Yud and the Mem with the Aleph Lamed Hey. How? Through his Bananu. See this shorish, Yud base Nun. This is the shorish. The root word of here is Bina, insight, learning one thing from another. What did he learn? He learned from the kindnesses of God. What's the kindnesses of God, of Hashem? Yud Ke Vav Ke? That's the open miracle of the splitting of the sea. He learned from there to put together the Yud and the Mem and the Aleph Lamed Hey. So we have here a verse in Tanakh, a verse in Psalms by King David, validating what Chazal say Yisro heard that caused him to come to the Jewish people and join us.
Wow. That is surprising. That is surprising.
So how do we know the sages are telling us the truth? It's even quoted in the Bible itself, in the written text.
It's kind of, it amazes me that I haven't heard this before. Not to be, I mean, it's just sat in so many studies before, not necessarily, like in other circles that I was with people that I thought may have known or would probably have put this together, but it's surprising that it's not widely known and understood to me.
Well, because Christians don't accept the authority of the oral law, don't accept the authority of the rabbis, and they don't know what they're missing.
That's true.
I don't
know any word.
Go ahead.
There's definitely an arrogance there that you could point out would probably be a lot like Pharaoh's, like arrogance, to where, I don't know any Christians who have otherwise studied like the Talmud or the Gemara to look for insight.
Right. And they can't do it on their own. They need a guide. If you remember the eunuch who wanted to get baptized or immersed or convert to Judaism.
Yeah. Candace, right?
I forget his name. There's one that he was reading. They were riding on a chariot. It's in the book of Acts. They were riding.
Yeah, he was from Ethiopia. Wasn't he Ethiopian?
Okay, yeah, could be. Yeah. He's riding on a chariot and he's reading from the prophet Isaiah. And Philip or Peter asked him, "Do you understand what you're reading?"
I think it was Peter anyway.
He asked him, "Do you understand what you're reading?" And he said to him, "How can I, unless someone guide me?" See, even in the so-called New Testament, we have validation for the importance of the oral law. If you like these kinds of insights, I highly encourage you to get. Let me get the Sefer 1 second. This is called the Ora Chaim, and it has different volumes. You can order this online. I don't know if you can see it clearly.
Yeah. Does that mean the light of life?
That was his name.
Oh.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Yes. And you can order these online. You're in LA, right?
No, I'm in North Idaho.
You're in North Idaho. That's right. So you can order these online easily, and they have different volumes. So we're just starting the book of Shmos now. So probably your best idea is to order all the volumes for Shmos. I think it's 2 volumes, 3 volumes at the most. Look online. So some of the Judaica stores, because what he does in this Sefer, he'll read the verse, he'll list out the verse, and then he'll immediately say what 4, 5, 6 questions jump off the page at him about this verse. And then he'll go through give you some of the explanations. There's many more explanations that can be had from our sages. He's just giving you some of the explanations of these words. And it's so easy to follow. It's in English and in Hebrew. It is so easy to follow that anybody who has, the desire to learn, it's basically spoon feeding you like you've never heard before.
Wow. That's I'll have to look into it. I'll have to go ahead. So what are you following along with right now that's going through it? Was that, part of the part of what you're doing on Shabbos, or?
Yeah, one of the things I'm doing on Shabbos, I'm doing it all week long, but I also do it on Shabbos. I also read these Parsha pages. These Parsha pages are online. This is what I sent you in the mail. I mean in the email. And it's a 6-page document deciphering Chassam Sofer's cryptic comic Yisro Kohen Midian Hoshen Moshe is an acronym for Mi Chacham.
Yes.
Who is wise?
And was Amalek the Pharaoh?
No, Amalek was the chief, the nemesis of Israel, the chief enemy of Israel. And God promises that when Mashiach comes, Amalek will be so destroyed he won't even be remembered.
Wow.
Because of his treachery of attacking the Jewish people, and he was not afraid of God. And because of his treachery, the whole world is in the place where we're at is because of Amalek, because he's the embodiment of evil. And when evil is destroyed, then good can reign on the earth. And that's what's going to happen when Mashiach comes.
Do you have an idea about who that is presently?
No. But when it happens, everybody will know, and there will be no doubt. There will be no doubt. One other interesting thing from this week's Parsha is that we know that in Parsha Shemos that Pharaoh commands the Jewish midwives to kill the baby on the birth stool, even before it's fully delivered. It's like basically it is a partial birth abortion. And these two midwives refuse to obey Pharaoh's order and keep the boys alive and don't kill them. So right away, God promised them that he was going to reward them by giving them houses. What does it mean he's going to give them houses?
Like family lines or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. But specific family lines.
Mm-hmm.
Priesthood and kingship. Kahuna and Malchus. The kings and priests of Israel are all descendants from these two women. Miriam is one of the two midwives. She was the direct ancestress of King David. Miriam married into the tribe of Yehuda. And obviously, Yocheved, the other midwife, was Moses' mother, and obviously direct ancestors of Aaron, his younger brother, and his older brother, and all the priests of Israel. So why were they rewarded this way? If you think about it, if these midwives would have obeyed Pharaoh and killed all the Jewish baby boys, what would happen to those baby Jewish girls when they grew up? Who would they marry? Well, maybe they can marry a convert, or maybe, God forbid, they could marry a non-Jewish man. But the children would still be Jewish because the mother is Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
But there will be no tribal affiliation. There would be no kingship and no priesthood. But because they preserved the priestly line and the kingly line by saving the Jewish boys, they saved the tribal affiliation. Therefore, they were rewarded that the best of the tribe should come from them. This is another evidence, not that we need any more, but just more evidence that it couldn't possibly be a virgin birth for the Messiah. It is absolutely dependent on the Messiah being a biological paternal child of someone who's directly paternally descended from King David and King Solomon.
May I ask you about one of the supposed evidences of the virgin births in Torah?
Sure.
I don't know if you've ever heard this, but apparently when that prophecy was given that, behold, I can, I know the word there, Alma, right? Or not.
Yeah, that's in Tanakh. That's in Isaiah. Okay.
Right. When a young woman will give birth to a child, then it'll be assigned to you.
Right.
Because you brought up the mem and the usage of that earlier, is it correct that the mem that's used in that verse is a closed mem, and that the mem otherwise signifies like a womb in?
Okay, I think I've heard somebody say something crazy like this. Let me see if I can pull it up here.
And I'm just saying that for the sake of sharing what I've heard as a
let's just pull it up here. Now are they claiming the mem
is a closed mem in the like the mem Sophie in
right?
the
So
I believe in like the in Alma there, which is why it was used as an Alma instead of Batula, so it could show a closed mem.
this is an open mem
It is.
right there.
Okay.
Can you see where I'm pointing with the cursor?
No, I don't. I still have the page as
Okay.
a.
Okay, let me change it. See it now? Okay.
Yes, I do.
Ha'alma,
Yeah,
Hine, behold, Ha'alma, behold the young woman. That is an open mem.
it sure is.
At least in this one that I think I've got a printed one. Let me look in the printed one.
Yeah, there's no mem Sophie in any of the at all in the verse at all used,
Let me just check here
with the exception of
at the end of a word.
Lachem, yeah, exactly.
So I'm looking in the art scroll. You probably can't see it, but I'm looking at the art scroll Tanakh.
Okay.
Yudalid Ha'alma, an open mem.
Well, there it is. Puts that one to rest then.
Right, right,
Yeah, that's a wild accusation for
right,
not having any substance to it.
right.
Appreciate that. May I ask you something else?
Sure.
Um,